Hey guys, welcome back to another video. If you're new to this channel, welcome. My name is Miranda and I teach about everything related to the trucking industry and how to navigate this craziness. So if this is a topic that interests you, feel free to subscribe and join this awesome community that we have built together. Okay, so today we're going to be looking at the monthly recap and our performance in the current market as of September 2022. As some of you know, I show the performance of our dry van versus one of our reefers, both of which are operated by my business partners. But since last month, a friend of ours who has his own authority and operates a flatbed has started sending his performance as well. So today we're going to be looking at a dry van versus a flatbed versus a reefer as of September 2022. Ready? Let's go. All right, guys. So I know this is very hard to see right now, but I promise it will get easier. So we have flatbed, reefer, and dry van right here, okay? And these are all real numbers. So let's start with the deadhead miles. So you can see right here that here are the deadhead miles for each of the three equipment types. Then there are loaded miles and the total miles for all three equipment types. Then we have the gross income, right? Flatbed made $30,100, reefer made $32,596, and dry van made $27,059. We have the loaded rate per mile, but we have the total rate per mile, which is what I want to focus on. $2.80 for the flatbed, $2.53 for the reefer, and $2.44 for the dry van. So as you can see right away, the best total rate per mile, this means including the deadhead, is for the flatbed. The worst is for the dry van. Okay, so now let's look at the expenses, right? So in terms of expenses, and let me just put this here, we have flatbed, reefer, dry van. So insurance for the flatbed is the highest, but this is because the gentleman who operates the flatbed, his company is newer. So his insurance is the highest. Then we have for the reefer and for the dry van. We have maintenance expenses for the reefer. They were extremely high this month. Then we have equipment payments. So the gentleman with the flatbed, he actually rents his flatbed trailer. So he pays $1,350 per month as an expense. Whereas these two are trailer payments. We're financing the reefer trailer and the dry van trailer. Then we have fuel expenses. The reefer was really high this month, but something to note. Now you see next to each of the expenses is the cost per mile. Of course, the fuel is the highest cost per mile here. But if you look at the 93 cents per mile, it's not really accurate because it's based on the miles driven in September. But some of the fuel expenses were actually at the end of August because of how the week rolls. So this is what it is. So 93 cents is not really accurate, but for the purpose of this video, let's keep it at 93 cents. Then there's the ELD, tools, and other expenses. For the reefer, there were huge expenses. Tolls ate us alive. We were on the East Coast a lot in the month of September, so the tolls really ate us alive. The tolls there are insane, especially Pennsylvania. It's crazy. So here are our total expenses. For the flatbed, it was $14,553. He had an investment of $1,000, which doesn't go into expenses. It's an investment into new equipment. Then we had $19,430 in expenses for the reefer, insane, and $14,251 for the dry van. So then we have our net income right here. The flatbed made the most net, $15,546. Reefer was number 2, $13,165. And dry van was number 3. Now this is all great, but I know that a lot of you guys are visual. So I'm going to actually stop this here for 1 second so you guys can pause the video if you want to take a screenshot or go through each expense. That's totally fine. But now let's go and move on to the graphs. So, all right. So number 1, gross income this month. So as you can see, reefer is on the number 1 spot, made the highest gross income. Number 2 is flatbed. Number 3 is dry van. Then let's go ahead and look at gross income versus expenses. Now, reefer was number 1 in gross income and expenses. Flatbed was number 2 in gross income, and they had pretty much the same expenses with the dry van. Next, total rate per mile. Well, it's very clear that the flatbed takes the number 1 spot for rate per mile with deadhead. Number 2 is reefer. Number 3 is dry van. Finally, I want to show you the breakdown of expenses. So the blue is flatbed, the green is reefer, and the gray is dry van. As you can see, fuel is always the highest expense. Now what I want to do is I want to actually compare these numbers to last month's numbers so you can see a comparison. So let's go ahead and go here. First of all, we are going to look at gross income versus expenses. So as you can see, there is August, September, August, September, August, September. The green is the flatbed, right? The blue is the reefer, the red is the dry van. So you can see that gross income for all 3 equipment types went down for all 3 of them this month in September. Now, in terms of the expenses for the flatbed, they decreased, which is great. For the reefer, they increased quite a bit. And for the dry van, they stayed the same. Now let's take a look at the rate per mile, which is really interesting. So again, green is flatbed, blue is reefer, red is dry van. So from what you can see, here is August. The first bar is always August, the second one is September. In all 3 cases, the rate per mile went up, the total rate per mile for all 3 equipment types. So it's an interesting little thing that's going on. According to DAT, all 3 equipment types have a rate per mile that is going down. But according to experience, all 3 equipment types have a rate per mile that is going up. So curious little thing. But in general, if you look at this graph again, let's make it a little bigger, you will see that the net income in all 3 equipment types actually decreased this month. And this is because of expenses. I mean, in the flatbed's case, he just made less gross income. The expenses actually went down. But for the reefer, the expenses ate us alive. And for the dry van, the gross income just was not as high as it was in August. So to recap, from what we have seen, we see that all 3 equipment types have actually been getting a better rate per mile compared to August of 2022. But the gross income actually decreased for all 3 equipment types. If you're confused as to how the gross income can decrease while the rate per mile increases, it's pretty simple. There are a ton of loads out there that you can grab for even $10 per mile. Think about it, 30 miles for $300. So here you have a rate per mile that's $10 per mile, but the gross income is only $300. Another thing I realized in September is that the deadhead has been decreasing since August. In August, the deadhead was extremely high. In September, it was more manageable. And the decrease in deadhead, of course, accounts for a higher total rate per mile. In general, September was definitely a month where the expenses were eating us alive, especially on the reefer. The market itself is nothing to be extremely excited about, but the expenses are the real problem here. Anyway, I hope you found this video helpful, and I'm very curious to hear what your experiences were with the September 2022 market. Personally, September was exhausting for me, but we shall see what this month brings. I'll see you guys in the next video.